Thank you for tuning into our podcast. We are coming to you from Chicopee, Massachusetts. I am your host, Carrie, and joining me is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Camus. He offers both public and private tours, as well as presentations of the local canal systems, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks and streets in Holyoke, South Hadley, and Chicopee, Mass. Now you lead these presentations and these tours yourself, is that correct?
That's right, and sadly this one's gone.
So today we'll be talking about the Linden paper mill. So tell us about the Linden paper mill.
Alright, the Linden paper mill was started out in 1893 by John McElwain, who would run other mills around Holyoke. It was a cotton-based paper mill. And what we're talking about today was some of the history of the company and an individual himself who made it up, and what production was like here, and where it's located and what's happened to it. Now, this is a paper mill that made a lot of products, and the products are very similar to other products being made around Holyoke. So there's not a drastic difference between this kind of mill than almost any other kind of mill. And the products were being sold right from the company. So like a lot of companies, they have a little line, but there was also resellers around the area that would sell it across the country for this company. They wouldn't necessarily do all their reselling.
And the owner was John McElwain. What would he do later in the paper industry in Holyoke?
Right, he might have started up the Linden Paper Company on Jackson Street, but he also was a co-owner and co-startup of the Crocker McElwain Company. The Crocker family had their own mill called the Crocker, and John McElwain as an individual had the Linden. But together they started up in 1903 the Crocker McElwain paper mill, which was a regular based paper mill made out of wood pulp, and so it wasn't very fancy paper. And so that's the difference. He had his fancy mill, Crocker had theirs, which also dyed paper a lot. And together they just made another mill up, Crocker McElwain. They just did very regular paper.
And quickly before we continue with the rest of our interview, just to fill our listeners in, if you want to check out any of his various tours or more information, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. And there he has both videos of the various stops along each tour and also past and present photos of the historical sites throughout as well. And if you want to set up a private tour or find out more, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, capital B, @yahoo.com. And they are perfect for fun and educational outdoor activities for the whole family or for your group parties, especially those special occasions and get-togethers. So getting back to our interview, what was production like at this mill?
Alright, now this mill right here was faced towards the canal and faced towards the west. So very unusual that would have this kind of arrangement. Now the main production site was considered the section that was along the canal, and they had four wings that went perpendicular to the canal and in the back of this main section. Now in the main section, they did things, paper production, a little bit different out of the cotton wood pulp. They would steam dry it towards the end instead of just letting it air dry. And then in that section, they also had anything else that had to do with the production of paper as a raw product, and that was the beaters of the pulp or the cotton, and then the drainers down below. Now the four wings towards the back, one of them was just an engine room, and we'll talk about that in the next segment. But there was also a wing towards the back that was a bleacher to bleach the paper, also a cutting room, and then rag storage and rag picking. And then another segment had the Fordrinier machine on the second floor, and then the sizing room down below. So that was a very important wing. If you count these four wings from north to south. This would have been the third one from the north, or the second one from the south. And this was a very important one because you had that for draining your machine going. And in the first one, you had the size room where you actually glue the paper elements together onto itself. Right? Paper is really glue plus either cotton or pulp in the middle, and then they do anything else processed off of that. All right, and then the last wing itself was devoted to making machines, apparatuses, and repair shop for them. But they also did finishing in the last one. And this was a segment that bordered on Jackson Street. So it probably got the most looks, but it's probably the least important. And they also had paper storage on one of the floors. So this was a very unique way of doing things. I don't see many do it in this way.
And what was the Linden, where was Linden located, and what is there now?
All right, now it faced somewhat onto the first level canal, and one of its last southernmost wing was on Jackson Street. Its back was on the second level canal near its end. All right, now since only a portion of the Linden Paper Company was near the first level canal, the engine room wasn't in that section. So what they only could have done to serve water into the Linden Paper Company was make a race or a tunnel that went a little bit more towards the south, even though the canal is already moving towards the south, and then this little race would then divert and then go towards the east, and then it would reach horizontally the engine room, and it would drop the water onto the turbine at that point to give it power into the mill. Now, this mill was from 1893. 2 years later, they would invent electricity, or have first electricity plants in Holyoke. And so it took in a lot of the water power, but probably also had a use of some of this new electricity coming in. To give you another basis upon this location, the Berkshire Yarn Company used to face into the canal side or the front of this Linden Paper Company. Now, if you go out and try to find a Linden Paper Company nowadays, you won't find it. It's gone. It's all a dirt patch, and that's sad. It lasted from 1893 into the 1960s under the unified company with other paper companies in Holyoke called the American Writing Paper Company. And during the crash of the paper industry in Holyoke in 1968, this company went under. I don't know what happened in the 70s, 80s, but at some point it was taken down.
So thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours, and we want to thank our listeners again for tuning in. And you can tune into a large selection of our other podcasts and much more at his website. That's holyokecanaltour.org. And you can email him directly for private tours or to inquire about anything else at bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com. And be sure to check out his upcoming 2024 season tours and more as they become available. Thank you for tuning in.